My wife's cheating and my daughter's betrayal destroyed our family. Here's how I took my revenge. Imagine a regular family. I'm Trevor Fruiton, a 45-year-old guy with thinning hair. I keep in decent shape, though I haven't quite achieved that elusive six-pack. Shedding a few pounds wouldn't hurt either. I'm not a fan of facial hair and I prefer contact lenses over glasses. Michelle, my wife, has an elegant figure with a small belly and a rounded back, which I find attractive. She's an ordinary woman, not stunningly beautiful or particularly unattractive, so she doesn't grab long-term attention. Despite being 45, Michelle wears glasses and insists on not shortening her name. Our family includes Ally, our 21-year-old daughter, a bright college student. Like her mom, Ally has gained some weight since her volleyball days in school. Despite her independence and advocacy for women's rights, she still relies heavily on us financially. It's been tough lately because I'm the sole breadwinner. I've decided not to burden Ally with student debts, and in return, she reluctantly agreed to live at home. Despite our modest lifestyle, Michelle and Ally enjoy luxury while I drive an old F-150. They own expensive luxury sedans. Unfortunately, our house has little equity due to their lavish lifestyle, which was financed through housing loans. Solving our financial problems has become a priority. Our suburban life follows a typical pattern with occasional neighborhood parties, though we're not particularly close to our neighbors. It's a way to spend weekends. We've developed a close relationship with our nearest neighbors and a married couple from the next street. Their daughter, Sally, is Ally's best friend. When Ally left for college, Sally felt a deep emptiness. Like Michelle, we spent a lot of time together, and now there's a void in my life. Despite expanding participation in volunteer activities, it didn't fill the gap. One evening, I asked Michelle if she was happy. She seemed puzzled and inquired about what makes me happy. I explained that I'm happy with my life, though lately she had become distant and lost enthusiasm. I missed the pleasant times we spent together, like with Ally. Perhaps I was a bit bored. I wondered if I was doing something wrong or if there was something I should do for her. Michelle reassured me, saying everything was fine with no complaints. Confused by her answer, I inquired about her motives and questioned why she was asking all these questions. My only desire was for her to be happy. Assuming she would seek help from a consultant to find balance and cheer up, I suggested it. She responded uncertainly, stating that she didn't know and would think about it. When the air got colder, I dismissed the idea. However, 2 weeks later, Michelle decided to start weekly sessions with a life coach. I hoped for a surge of passion in our bedroom, but unfortunately that didn't happen. We've remained consistent partners in intimacy, twice a week, and it seems it'll continue indefinitely. I'm not complaining. Michelle accepts my occasional moments of premature pleasure, just as I tolerate her occasional simulated climaxes. Normality is a subjective idea, and honestly, I can't figure out where we stand in relation to it. I've never talked about my personal life with anyone, and I don't encourage my friends to share intimate details about their relationships. My neighbors, Mark and Cindy, are a couple in their 60s who live south of me. Mark, despite being reserved, isn't great with hands-on work and is more likely to accidentally hurt himself than fix something successfully. On the flip side, Cindy is a fantastic baker who often treats him to delicious goodies, resulting in him gaining a few extra pounds. One nice weekend, I was at their place fixing the sauna pump that Mark had been waiting 4 months to get the necessary part for. Opportunities like that don't come often in early December, so I took advantage of it. Our patio sliding door has seen better days, making a scratching sound when opened. This familiar noise caught my attention. If it's not Michelle returning from her mother's, it must be Ally. It was confirmed when I heard her talking. He must be inside somewhere. His car was parked outside. It's been a while since I last saw him, so I'm in the backyard, sitting in the gazebo. Ever thought about it? I paused, realizing that Ally was intentionally keeping this conversation from my ears. Oh my God, Mom, you're way behind. Maybe give Max a chance. Sally says he's quite experienced and eager to please. Maybe that's what you need to break out of the bedroom routine. What's this about? My wife told our daughter about our bedroom issues. We obviously have some unresolved problems, but she didn't talk to me about it. Where did this sudden revelation come from? And trusting our daughter is just not appropriate. I get that you need time to think about everything. By the way, Dad mentioned he'll be hunting next weekend. I'll ask Jeff to invite Max to our house. Sally said Max is a bit thin but seems to have a strong attraction to you. Sally also mentioned his physical attributes. When anger started to overwhelm me, I paused to make sure I understood the situation correctly. So my daughter is arranging a meeting between Michelle and Jeff's friend. Whether or not you agree, Sally suggested you might want to try something with Max. The following pause might have been due to my growing frustration. It seems like they're conspiring to ruin my marriage too. I can't help but wonder what I've done to deserve this situation. Okay, keep me posted. Love you. Goodbye. I was terribly upset, and it's probably lucky that I didn't hurt myself while working with this problematic pump. The atmosphere at home throughout the week was terrible. I purposely did everything to annoy Michelle and Ally, spending most of my time in my office or in the garage. My power tools are now sharpened and look like new. I didn't cancel the hunting trip, but I asked someone to keep an eye on Michelle's actions. Photos of Ally, Jeff, and a skinny young man entering the house around noon appeared in the camera feed. About 2 hours later, Sally and Jeff left, and the skinny young man followed suit about 4 hours later. I returned on Sunday. Michelle was wearing sweatpants and trying to be overly affectionate, hugging and smiling, but I didn't react to her gestures. Although it wasn't conclusive evidence, I couldn't help but notice that Michelle was sitting cross-legged, leaning heavily to the left more than her usual demeanor. Maybe someone's backside was a little tender. Later in the kitchen, Ally changed everyone's fate by playfully slapping Michelle on the rear, making both of them burst into laughter. Pretending to cough, I felt a weight in my chest. I hoped my wife, who was completely unaware of the incident, didn't pass anything on to me. I decided to sleep on the couch in the living room. Michelle chose not to carry on with her plans. In the morning, I mentioned struggling to breathe and needing to see a doctor, even though it was just a pretense. Luckily, my boss was fine with me taking the day off. I wanted to pretend I had COVID-19 to expedite my departure. With a significant amount of accumulated sick leave and vacation time, I could afford this break, allowing me to attend our traditional Christmas Eve dinner. When I claimed to have COVID-19, I knew it would scare everyone away. Unsure if I really had it, considering I've had both vaccine doses and feel healthy. My respiratory system remained unaffected despite a broken heart and strong anger toward 4 people. To avoid discomfort, I chose to stay in an extended stay hotel. I was relieved when my wife expressed happiness that I'd be out of quarantine before Christmas Eve. She and her daughter called me twice a day. Instead of showing my true emotions, I remained polite but acted tired to the conversation. During this time, I focused on planning carefully thought-out revenge. I needed to make changes to all my financial matters, including wills, beneficiaries, and emergency contacts. I didn't realize how many attachments and responsibilities I'd accumulated over time. Finding a new apartment was a challenging test, making me fully aware of my permanent decision to divorce Michelle and end Ally's financial dependence on me. Jeff deserved consequences for his actions, but I wasn't sure how to react to Max's behavior. When overwhelmed with anger, a person can have many thoughts and ideas. If I acted on most of them, my future plans would be in jeopardy. One idea, inspired by the news, was to hire an escort to trap Jeff, imitating a company's tactics to eliminate unwanted employees. But this plan would damage Ally, who, in my opinion, didn't deserve such consequences. Preparing for Christmas, we sat at the dining room table, admiring the plastic Christmas tree with flashing red, white, and green lights and inhaling the festive aroma from pine cones. Over the past 23 years, we've turned annual gatherings into a tradition, but not everyone attended the first 2 gatherings. Michelle worked hard in the kitchen, and now we all sat at the table enjoying the meal. Usually, at this moment, I could briefly express my gratitude, but not this time. When I stood up to make a speech, it was evident that my toast wouldn't be lighthearted. I turned to Jeff and casually asked him, "What do you think of Heather?" The question drained the color from Jeff's face and caught Ally's attention, who has been in a relationship with Jeff since high school. It was hard to imagine anyone doubting that they would be together in 50 years. Jeff hesitated and expressed confusion about Heather's reference. His denial lacked conviction. It seemed as if he would prefer jumping out of a speeding train, resorting to the classic politician tactic of denying everything. He mumbled that he didn't remember hearing that name, but I remained unconvinced, prompting me to play my own card. I activated an audio recording on my phone, capturing Heather's voice exclaiming, "Oh, Jeff, you're great. I'm glad to meet you again." Swiftly turning off the recording, I hoped that my doubts about it being Jeff's voice would disappear along with the fatting sound waves. Ally, on the other hand, completely lost control and flew into a rage. She accused Jeff of betrayal, instructing him to leave immediately. Acting quickly, I positioned myself behind him, holding him in place. Both Jeff and I managed to fend off Ally's desperate attempt to damage him. I advised Michelle to take her daughter to another room and attempt to calm her down, noting that Ally was behaving like a wild animal. I needed a serious talk with Jeff. Michelle led Ally forcefully out of the dining room into the kitchen, and the commotion didn't go unnoticed as a string of expletives fell out, causing tension among the serene serving bowls. In a short time, I explained to Jeff the further course of events. I made it clear he had to warn Max against meeting me, as the consequences of such a meeting would make Max regret his existence. Jeff was sternly warned that his involvement in this case was completely unacceptable, and I made it clear I didn't want to catch his eye anymore. The pallor of his face indicated he realized how much his position had decreased and how limited his choices were. I handed him the envelope. Jeff agreed to do the last assignment on my behalf. I called loudly toward the kitchen, urging Michelle to come back with Ally. We were ready to talk. If looks could cause damage, then Ally's gaze at Jeff would be fatal. Michelle sat with a puzzled expression. Both were visibly upset, with tears. First, let me explain how I obtained this recording, I clarified to Jeff. I explained that the woman's name wasn't Heather, and I admitted to not knowing her real name. She works as an escort, and I paid a significant sum to hire her, aiming to entice him into attempting to meet, with the entire process recorded. I mentioned there was also a video available for anyone interested. In response to Ally's shocked inquiry about why I hired her, I calmly acknowledged that I did. Despite my calm reply, Ally couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, as if she had been stabbed in the back. Michelle emitted a thin, frightened squeak, and her eyes briefly met Ally's before quickly looking away. Both women were visibly shocked, tears streaming down their faces. Jeff, it's your turn to talk, I said, switching my cell phone camera to video mode. Jeff got up from his seat, picked up the folder in front of him, and addressed Michelle directly. Michelle Fruiton, you have been officially served with a notification, he announced, handing her a folder. The tension in the room was palpable as we waited for Michelle's reaction. I couldn't figure out if she would be sick or pass out. At first, she lost consciousness, and then, having regained consciousness, she began to vomit. The pine cones seemed insignificant compared to what happened next. Jeff gave Michelle the divorce papers and quickly left the house, leaving Ally to comfort her upset mother. Ally's tears kept flowing, unable to contain the overwhelming weight of the situation. Meanwhile, in the master bedroom, I took charge of the chaos outside. Ally's valuable possession, her gift for completing her 4-year training, was safely packed in a carrier and disappeared from view. All her valuables were thrown into a garbage bag and left on the house's porch. Soon, Michelle's luxurious car pulled up to the house, highlighting the contrast between the two vehicles. Her belongings were transferred to an old sedan that had served for 23 years, symbolizing the duration of our marriage. According to my lawyer, I still had to provide Michelle with transportation. I double-checked while sipping bourbon. All our credit cards, including Ally's credit card where I was a co-borrower, were paid off and canceled. Cell phones were also canceled. Once again, I was responsible for getting Michelle a new phone, a track phone with a plan offering 60 minutes of talk time and 100 text messages. Unfortunately, Ally didn't get the same benefits. Despite this, both still had iPhones with an impressive 16 cameras or something similar. They had to find and pay for their own phone plan. As for the house, there was now a for sale sign on the garage. I confidently hammered it into the front yard. However, I couldn't sell the house yet because it had Michelle's name on the property rights. I just wanted her to have an idea of what the future held for us. Instead of staying in the living room where Christmas music played by the Christmas tree, I sought solace in the basement, sitting in the dark. I found peace, especially hearing the chaos happening above me. It was evident that nothing they once owned was functioning properly. They threw unpleasant words at me, but those words seemed soft compared to the ones I shouted in my empty hotel room preparing for this day. Trevor, we need to talk. Maybe he went out for a walk because his car was parked on the street. Strangely, my car is nowhere to be found. Maybe he took it. To make matters worse, my phone isn't answering either. My car has truly disappeared. Maybe his father took him. It can't be that he drives both cars. Whose disgusting car is parked in front of the house? It looks like my phone isn't working either. I hope this fool didn't cancel my phone connection. Let's go ask Cindy if she'll let us use her phone. I securely closed the entrance locks. Now they were outside the house without working phones and credit cards. Moreover, since both of their purses were left here, they did not have any identification documents with them. I didn't feel any remorse when I sent both drivers' licenses to the paper shredder. I am sure that this will cause them considerable discomfort while they try to rebuild their lives. After pouring a glass, I turned on the TV and watched a cheap special for a short time. Our current circumstances could not help but differ from the spiritual atmosphere shown in this program. The choice in favor of silence seemed to me more reasonable. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the front door. It was Michelle, an ally, who returned. It was at this moment that Michelle's daughter, whom I no longer consider my own, saw the contents of a garbage bag standing by the porch. Ally expressed shock upon realizing that everything she had in her car was now in this package. She mentioned that her father had disposed of her car, but she refused to believe it. It was hard for her to imagine that he did that, as it was completely out of character for him. Amidst their conversation, I suggested to Mom that maybe the reason her car was missing was that he had indeed sold it. If that were the case, I swore I'd confront him, expressing my anger. I loved that car. The constant ringing of the doorbell made it difficult to hear their conversation outside. Two women stood with festive napkins in their hands, making it seem unwise to open the door. Michelle was furious and demanded that I open the door immediately, pointing out that it was freezing outside. In response, I informed her that the keys to her new car were in the ignition, specifying that her car was an orange-green Malibu parked outside the house. I mentioned that all the items from her previous car had been transferred into it. Additionally, I suggested that the stove had a long-lasting warmth and the gas tank was full. I proposed the idea that she could offer her car to Max and stay with him, considering the possibility that he might still have feelings for her. After a short silence, Michelle attempted to adopt a softer tone and extended holiday greetings to me. I responded by telling her it was time for them to leave and requested that she take her daughter with her, describing Ally as unpleasant. After a while, the aging Malibu came to life despite its appearance suggesting the need for a new muffler. It wasn't surprising, given that the guy practically gave me the car just to get rid of it. I had no intention of spending my money on repairing it. Without much fuss, they drove away from the house. It has been a long time since I've heard of someone being poisoned by carbon monoxide due to a faulty muffler. Perhaps luck would be on my side this time, though the likelihood was slim. An hour later, my father-in-law's number appeared on the screen of my mobile phone. While we weren't exactly close friends, we managed to communicate well. He greeted me saying, "Hi, Trevor, I have a couple of upset women here. I thought you might have some understanding of the situation. Call me, and by the way, Merry Christmas." I turned off the sound on my mobile phone and sipped my eggnog with fizzy drinks, letting the adrenaline gradually subside. The flickering lights of the artificial Christmas tree gently lulled me into a peaceful slumber. When I woke up on this cool Christmas morning, the sun greeted me with its radiant warmth. There was a collection of cold serving dishes on the dining table, but fortunately, the microwave quickly warmed up my breakfast. Ham with cheese potatoes is a delicious dish suitable for any time of the day. In anticipation of the holiday, a stack of gifts was eagerly waiting for its turn to be opened. To my disappointment, Santa Claus left me empty-handed. The gifts lying under the decorated Christmas tree were intended for the evening celebration. If anyone had been observant, they would have noticed the absence of gifts from me to any of them. I did not unwrap the donated items but preferred to collect the most expensive things that I wanted to take with me. Not a single photo captured our shared memories. I was trapped, and everything I came across was now scattered on the ground. It was only a few days later that Michelle found me at my house. The sun had already set, and a bitter breeze was in the air when I opened the door. I left the latch on the lock, half expecting another presentation on the sale of poinsettias for a youth sports team. To my surprise, a pale-faced Michelle stood in front of me, devoid of the usual makeup and styled hair. She begged me not to close the door, and I hesitated, giving her the opportunity to continue. She requested a chance to explain and asked if she could enter. However, she pleaded with despair, saying, "There's no need for the neighbors to know about it." I questioned what she needed, and she expressed a sincere apology without justifying her actions. I asked what actions she was referring to, and she pleaded to discuss it inside. Michelle gently admitted to having an intimate relationship with Max, and I responded with surprise. She widened her eyes when she realized I knew about it. I accused her of having no proof for a divorce and asked if she had hired a lawyer. She responded that she was in the process but believed we could solve our problems and avoid a divorce course. I told her it was too late and criticized her for not taking steps to save our marriage a month ago. I accused her of selfishness and dragging our daughter into the situation. I expressed that the fault was entirely hers and stated that I wanted nothing to do with her or our daughter anymore. Michelle apologized deeply and asked how she could make amends, but I told her there was nothing she could do. I expressed that I would be better off without her and that the decision was up to me whether her infidelity was true or not. She urged me to refrain from any action for a few weeks, explaining it was only a brief moment of weakness. I told her to go away and not bother me anymore. As she begged and knocked, my noise-canceling headphones successfully blocked the sound. I closed the door, and by morning she was nowhere to be found. Almost a year later, minus one day, I was sitting in my lonely two-room apartment, continuing the tradition of Christmas Eve of my own accord. I prepared a modest dinner for myself. At first, I had a hard time with cooking, and although they say that betrayal feels like a stab in the back, it really broke my heart, self-esteem, and self-confidence. I managed to maintain my self-respect throughout this ordeal. There were countless nights when I doubted whether I had gone too far, but deep down, I never agreed with this opinion. Eventually, I got to the point where I felt unnecessary and decided to leave. It was very simple at that time. When I was in a state of uncertainty after the divorce, it seemed to me that I had failed. My attitude toward work became sour. I often began to snap at colleagues, which is why my boss repeatedly made remarks to me. Gradually, I stopped communicating with people and began to lead the life of a recluse. My colleagues learned to give me freedom, and I focused exclusively on work, coping with my duties perfectly. I deliberately decided to refrain from attending corporate parties, and when friends tried to set me up with them, I politely refused such offers. Gradually, my friends began to disappear one by one. It seemed that my endless pity party stayed for a long time. In search of solace, I turned to running with headphones in my ears. People passed by without bothering me, but this new hobby, along with cooking for myself, made me lose a few pounds. Accordingly, the old clothes no longer fit me, and I had to switch to a more modern style. Occasionally, one of my colleagues would make a kind remark about my appearance, but it didn't go beyond that. The divorce seemed to drag on endlessly, lasting a grueling 9 months. Eventually, when we reached the breaking point, our house quickly found a new owner. Instead of monthly support, Michelle received the lion's share of revenue from the sale. Sally and Jeff went their separate ways. It seemed that Michelle's cheating was more acceptable than Jeff's actions. Last spring, Jeff, while intoxicated, confronted me and angrily accused me of bringing him and Heather together. He always found someone to blame for his mistakes. I wasn't around when he was with Heather. He was weak, like most men his age, and easily succumbed to the persuasions of a seductive temptress. As for Ally, she was desperately trying to express her anger at me. She left angry voicemails, but I never answered. Maybe someday I'll answer her call, but it's unlikely, so don't bet on it. I didn't get an invitation to her graduation, but I didn't attend it either. Michelle was going through a particularly difficult time. Since we got married, she had never worked, and it was difficult for her to get a job somewhere. In order to delay the resolution of financial issues, my lawyer delayed the process as much as possible. As a result, when the house got sold, I paid all the money she was supposed to receive for maintenance according to the court. This led to both of us losing our comfortable lifestyle. Michelle tried to justify her incredibly stupid decisions during legal consultations, but she believed it wasn't enough to erase the almost 25 years we lived together. I looked at her with an empty expression, and a few tears rolled down her eyes. Hatred, a powerful emotion, clung to me tightly, and I struggled to contain it. A year passed, and we sat in my apartment, continuing the Christmas Eve tradition. Macy, a friend going through a similar situation, joined me. No, we weren't romantically involved. I wasn't ready for that yet. After cleaning up, Macy led me to the living room where we occasionally danced and snuggled. I yearned for the comforting presence of a woman ready to share warmth, which I missed so much. After about 10 songs, Macy wiped away a tear and went back home. We were both emotionally scarred. The tone and the monthly voice messages Ally left changed. She was apologizing. Despite this, I never bothered to answer her calls. My caring mom accidentally found out that Michelle had moved in with someone else. Surprisingly, my reaction was mostly indifferent. Gradually, I started engaging in small talk with people. Former colleagues avoided me and new ones found me unusual. Making friends has always been difficult for me, but with Macy, I managed to bridge this gap. We're just friends. In late January, I received a letter from Ally in my mailbox. Part of me hesitated to open it, not knowing what might be inside, but curiosity got the better of me. In the letter, Ally apologized and included a selfie. She stood with a gloomy expression, holding her rounded stomach. The note said, "Daddy, I deeply apologize for my mistakes. I'm pregnant. I wonder if you can find the strength to accept your grandson into your life. If not, I understand. With love, Ally." The return address indicated Ally had moved, and I wondered about her current situation. There was no mention of her husband or clues about her marital status. I squinted at the photo for signs of rings on her fingers, but they were difficult to distinguish. Despite my contempt for their mother, my desire to have grandchildren remained unchanged. It took me a few weeks to gather my thoughts before answering. During this time, Macy and I parted ways, recognizing that we were only sources of support for each other. She decided to move far away and start anew. After hugging me several times, she bid farewell to my life. To keep my sanity, I decided to play pickleball at a local recreation center. Though it's a shortened version of tennis with different rules, I found myself playing with people at a similar skill level. There's something nostalgic about it, reminiscent of high school. Shannon entered my life with a loud entrance. She seemed to be around my age, like many people I play with. I often miss the ball due to my lack of skill. Unfortunately, during a game, one of my throws accidentally hit Shannon between her chest. Her friends jokingly suggested I should kiss her to make it better, which made Shannon blush even more. After the game, Shannon jokingly said I should at least buy her a soft drink. I met Shannon, who introduced herself and expressed apologies for accidentally hitting me. She confessed she wasn't familiar with games and found it challenging to engage in conversation, especially with women. Shannon mentioned a Jamba Juice cafe in the shopping center and suggested that I treat her. I agreed and we took a walk to the cafe. During our conversation, we got to know each other better, although my responses were not particularly eloquent. As our conversation continued, Shannon observed my self-doubt and asked if I was in a relationship. I responded that I didn't think I'd ever have one due to a past experience of infidelity. Shannon inquired if my ex-partner had left me, and I explained that she had cheated and I couldn't accept it. It had been a few years, but I hadn't fully come to terms with it. She then asked if I was currently dating anyone, and I mentioned going on occasional dates but nothing serious. When asked about the last time I went on a date, I admitted it had been since the breakup, and though I invited people to dinner, it never progressed beyond that. I shared that my marriage ended 26 months ago in December, and despite appearances, it wasn't an easy process. It took me several years to regain my self-confidence after feeling abandoned. Palms sweating from the current conversation, Shannon noticed and suggested changing the topic. We shifted to discussing why I decided to start playing pickleball, and I explained that I was tired of indulging in self-pity. I decided it was time to find something new to occupy my time, which led me to the game. My friends persistently encouraged me until I eventually gave in. Surprisingly, I found that I really enjoy it. Shannon shared that she also liked the game. She mentioned having to leave and said she would see me tomorrow for a match at 4:00 p.m. We bid farewell, and Shannon reassured me to stay strong, expressing her belief that everything would get better. That night, I felt confident enough to respond to Ally. I conveyed that I don't mind trying, and though we may never be close, I would like to at least get to know my grandson. I asked her to let me know when the right moment comes, but I made it clear that I refused to be in the same room with her mother, no matter what. I signed off as Mr. Fruiton. I mentioned Ally's demonstration and included a selfie. I added that, according to my calculations, the delivery date should have taken place in May or June. However, I wasn't sure if Ally got my answer because I haven't received another letter from her. Additionally, the next day during a pickleball game, Shannon and several other ladies were flirting. I was pleased. After a particularly successful punch, Shannon jokingly remarked that I looked great in my shirt and that I might look even better without it. The women laughed and I felt my face turn red. Funny you should mention that, Shannon. It seems to me that you look very good in those yoga pants. It seems to me that you would look even better without them, I replied. When Shannon blushed, the room filled with uncontrollable laughter. The women began to playfully sing along, urging me to take off my shirt. Reluctantly, I yielded to their request and took it off, but Shannon shook her head vigorously and began to scold as if I had behaved badly. Under the wolf whistle of several ladies, I quickly put my shirt back on. Shannon muttered the words, "You're terrible," in my direction, to which I responded with a kiss. When the games ended, some women started flirting, and one even complimented Shannon on how amazing she looks without yoga pants. Shannon waited patiently for her turn, keeping her composure. I decided to treat the girl to a refreshing drink and coincidentally was just about to ask her a question. I complimented her on her beautiful yoga pants, but she quickly told me to stop. Judging by her ear-to-ear grin, she was quite pleased with herself. While we were enjoying drinks, I plucked up the courage and invited Shannon to dinner and a movie. I was scared at the thought that she might reject me, but fortunately, she accepted my invitation. I couldn't get enough of it. Being out of the dating scene for over 27 years, I felt clueless, clumsy, and very nervous. But over time, I managed to relax and I regained my former cheerful character. After a few dates, Shannon convinced me to spend the night. I was surprised when she asked, "Who are you thinking about?" This question caught me off guard and I had to pause and think. My simple answer was, "About you." I couldn't help but wonder what she saw in me, a self-proclaimed loser. It felt like she saw me as just a reflection in the mirror. In early June, Shannon talked to me in bed about my granddaughter's birth as she held my hand. Her words made me realize she might know something I didn't. She mentioned there was only one major hospital nearby and that she'd kept an eye on the newborn registry. It turned out that a woman named Ally Fruiton had recently given birth to a girl. This news eased my tension, but Shannon's warm lips revived my desire. Instead of a physical relationship, we opted for a more intimate connection through passionate kisses. Exhausted and tired, I sought comfort in Shannon's presence. In my uncertainty, I pondered my next actions. Sending flowers might be an appropriate gesture, not necessarily overflowing with love, but expressing recognition of her newfound motherhood. A day after sending the flowers, I unexpectedly received a letter. In it, as a father, I acknowledged the emptiness of my apologies and hoped they would be seen as sincere. The memories of the terrible breakdown on Christmas Eve haunted me, fueling my resentment. Ally expressed that I had disrupted her relationship with Jeff by taking away her car, phone, and altering her entire lifestyle for a considerable period. She harbored bitterness and immaturity, transforming into an offended woman. After reflecting on the situation, she began seeing things from my point of view, acknowledging that the treatment I received from them was undeserved. She couldn't forgive herself for her actions and deeply regretted being a terrible person. Ally claimed to have undergone significant personal growth, becoming a completely different person. She shed tears for her past actions, considering them as pure evil. Despite the difficulty, she expressed a willingness to make an effort and bring my presence back into her life, seeking comfort once more. Ally emphasized the importance of looking into her eyes when she sincerely asked for forgiveness to understand the depth of her remorse. She expressed a desire for friendship, recounting a lesson learned from a close friend about the difference between good and evil, weakness and strength. Ally wondered what she could offer in return and mentioned giving me grandchildren, naming her daughter Bonnie after my mother. Currently, Ally and Bonnie lived in her modest apartment, facing the world as a duo. She extended an open invitation for visits or suggested arranging for Bonnie to be with me when she wasn't around. Ally concluded the letter by expressing her enduring identity as my daughter and her hunger for my love again. I shared this letter with Shannon, who believed it to be sincere. My plans were to protect Shannon from Ally, considering the damage Ally had caused in one of my past relationships. In response, I received a warm hug and a passionate kiss from Shannon, who assured me not to worry. She claimed to be strong, with emotional barriers to keep unwanted people out. Expressing gratitude for breaking through as we hugged tightly, moving gently like dancing to a slow love song, Shannon emphasized that I couldn't fully love her while holding on to hatred for Ally and Jeff. She urged me to let go so our relationship could develop. Echoing Shannon's advice about leaving the past behind, the headlights revealed the return address of Ally's apartment. Shannon accompanied me as I softly knocked on Ally's door. Ally opened the door, and inside, I introduced Shannon to my daughter. We exchanged greetings with gentle cheek kisses and entered the cozy apartment. Ally suggested holding Bonnie, and I settled down at the kitchen table, holding Bonnie gently. Surprisingly, Bonnie remained calm, not shedding a tear, reminding me of how small and delicate Bobby's hands and feet are. Looking at Shannon, I saw love in her eyes. Shannon brought up the subject, mentioning that Ally had already told Bonnie's father about her birth. Ally replied that Bonnie's father believed she was trying to trap him and that there was uncertainty about whether he would change his mind. Ally and I carefully avoided each other throughout the evening. I left without hugging or kissing her. When I got into the car, Shannon scolded me, insisting that Ally should know that I still love her. Shannon replied, "I know you love her and you know it too. Go back there and do it right." Leaving Shannon in the car, I went to Ally's door and knocked. She asked, "Did you forget something?" "I kind of forgot to hug you and express my love for you," I replied. It was such an emotional moment that it could have been the plot for a Hallmark movie. 6 months pass, and a few weeks later we gathered in my apartment for our traditional Christmas Eve dinner. Shannon, Ally, and I were there, and I was holding Bonnie in my arms. I said the Christmas blessing, and then we enjoyed the meal and exchanged gifts. Bonnie got more presents than expected, but she seemed to like the way the wrapping paper made noise when she played with it. Because of the snowy weather, it was too risky to make a long trip on Christmas Eve. A year later, I let Ally and Bonnie live in my apartment. Shannon and I started spending nights at her place regularly, continuing the tradition of Christmas Eve. We were heading to Shannon's house for a festive dinner before the wedding. We definitely signed a prenuptial agreement. I found myself being closely watched when I chatted with other pickleball players, but it didn't bother me. Carter Denton, Ally's husband and Bonnie's father, joined us this year. It took him a while, but eventually he realized that he really wanted to be a part of Ally and Bonnie's life. Bonnie and I really like to cuddle together, making us great buddies. The role of grandfather brings me great joy. In addition, Shannon's children and grandchildren were present in the house, creating a warm and lively atmosphere during the Christmas gatherings. One of her sons kindly led the family's heartfelt blessing. Reflecting on life, I realized that it continues regardless of our participation. It took me a while to realize that life was slipping away from me, but this is no longer the case. I have found satisfaction in the place I have reached, and I am sincerely glad of my current position.